Non-linear design has seen a significant increase in popularity in recent years, spurred on by the overwhelming success of Breath of the Wild. It's such a brilliant and ambitious idea to give the player full autonomy over the world, while still ensuring they have an incredible experience no matter where they go or what they do. So, since Breath of the Wild was so popular, many other studios have sought to replicate that success by applying non-linear design to their own games, even in genres where it doesn't fit. I can't think of a more antithetical genre to non-linearity than RPGs. A core part of an RPG is leveling up, which is a system that could not be any clearer in telling you what to do and where to go. So when you tell the player they can go anywhere, but still gate off areas with enemies that are too high level, you're not actually giving the player any freedom. Today, I want to take a look at a few non-linear RPGs and discuss how they uniquely fail at what they're trying to do with their progression, and then take a look at one RPG that did non-linear design really well. So, you might be thinking I've already mentioned that game and it's Breath of the Wild, and to that I say in the most respectful way possible, how in Hylia's name can you think Breath of the Wild is an RPG? Just because a game has cooking and armor doesn't automatically make it an RPG, but then what an RPG is a whole other discussion. My interpretation is it needs to have builds and vastly different playstyles between playthroughs. So I don't consider Breath of the Wild to be an RPG. Let's start with Diablo 4, and how it lets you swap between its 3 main quest lines at any time, as Breath of the Wild did. However, it locks those quest lines behind different levels, so it's trying to guide you along the intended path for completion. Zelda did this by dropping a one-off line about the recommended place to get started, while Diablo 4 will straight up kill you if you try and do the story out of order. Now, it's worth mentioning that a sane person will grind out a few dozen dungeons before doing anything main story related in Diablo. Unfortunately, I'm an insane person who hates breaking the pacing of a narrative in games, so I always mainline the story. So for grindy players, aka Diablo's main fanbase, the story most likely could be tackled in any order, but the narrative content of each questline makes it evident that it shouldn't be done in this way. It doesn't make sense to kill Lilith's second in command and then go back to the Fractured Peaks to mess around in some crypt. We should go to Lilith after killing Elias, so the non-linear design hurts the pacing and flow of the narrative while also being pointless. Octopath Traveler and its sequel are RPGs whose main selling point, other than their new art style, is how you can follow its 8 protagonists' questlines in any order you choose. But again, this is a lie. The game blatantly tells you what level you need to be for each encounter, and no two are ever the same level, so it's not like there are moments where you can choose between 4 scenarios for which one you want to play out first. And even if you were a masochist who liked playing JRPGs underleveled and skipped to the higher level quests and beat them, then you have to trudge back through the previous questlines that you're now overleveled for, creating an uneven experience in 2 directions. I genuinely believe that Octopath Traveler is saved by its art style, because while the game seems to give you a choice in what character's journey to follow, it's ultimately another linear RPG that has next to no examples of non-linearity. But even Octopath Traveler has the decency to tell you what missions you can't do, unlike the final negative example for today's video, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now, Scarlet and Violet may be buggier than a shiny hunt in Viridian Forest, but they tried to shake up the Pokemon formula in a significant way. Game Freak's schedule means they had no time to polish the game, or in this case, think out the design. Scarlet and Violet's world is flat, with no guided pathways. There's nothing that indicates to players where they should go and what they should do. With 18 story missions that don't scale to the player's current strength, it's almost a guarantee that the player is going to experience things out of order, which is usually a good thing, but in this game, the world isn't scaled to the player's strength, so they'll walk into a fight they can't overcome. This is the best example of how not to incorporate non-linearity into an RPG, making the most uneven and unbalanced Pokemon experience I've ever seen. But there is one RPG that did non-linear design excellently, and even predates Breath of the Wild, and that game is Live Alive. Live Alive is the inspiration for Octopath Traveler, using 8 protagonists to tell a greater story. The key to its success is that it didn't try and meld all those characters into one world in an attempt to return to Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest's 4-person party style. Live Alive takes massive strides to make each of its 8 scenarios vastly different, and by having the player start over at level 1 each time they start a new character, it means that the non-linear nature has no consequences on the balance of the game, no matter what the player chooses. Non-linearity is excellent. I love it when developers give the player more power in their games, but this design philosophy doesn't make sense in every genre. It's a bad idea to provide me with the option to fight the level 20 boss before the level 5 one, because both experiences will end up suffering. Levels in an RPG are a clear indicator of where you should be and what order you should do the game in, and I think it's best for everyone if we all count in the correct order.